woman dies after reportedly receiving Botox injections at a Jimsha Choi beauty clinic. President Xi Jinping says Hong Kong and Macau still have irreplaceable roles to play in China's future development. And in Australia, woman appears in court in connection with a strawberry needle contamination case.
Good evening. A 52-year-old woman who fell into a coma at a Tsim Sha Tsui beauty clinic yesterday died in hospital this morning. As Kena Chu reports, the victim had allegedly received Botox injections.
The beauty clinic in question is located on the 17th floor of Grand Center on 8 Humphreys Avenue. Its owner, Dr. Franklin Lee, was arrested this afternoon on suspicion of misleading a police officer and breaching the dangerous drugs regulations in terms of maintaining the record of dangerous drugs. The victim's death is still under investigation.
It highly depends on the medical examination and also some expertise report.
The Yatsun District Crime Squad and staff of the Department of Health carried out overnight investigations at the clinic. Police received a report yesterday evening that the 52-year-old woman lost consciousness while receiving medical beauty procedures. She was taken to Queen Elizabeth Hospital where she died this morning. Sources say the woman was also an asthma patient. A plastic surgery specialist says death from botulinum toxin is unheard of.
Die from botulinum toxin injection is very rare. Actually, it's not heard of in literature. Well, I have never come across a patient who have acute asthmatic attack because of the botulinum toxin injection.
In 2003, a 71-year-old woman fell into a coma and died after undergoing a liposuction procedure administered by Dr. Franklin Lee. Lee's medical license was suspended in 2009 for 5 months over 4 counts of professional misconduct. A lawmaker criticized the government for not regulating the medical beauty industry.
They need to give us an answer as to how to regulate the industry, as to how to give a proper protection to all the customer and the patients. To using the excuse by the government that any regulation will affect or influence the industry is entirely unacceptable.
Kena Chu, TVB News.
President Xi Jinping met with Hong Kong and Macau delegations in Beijing this morning. It recognized contributions made by the two places in the country's reform and opening up over the past 4 decades. The state leader also said the two SARs have irreplaceable roles to play in China's future development. Christy Long reports.
A top-level reception at the Great Hall of the People for more than 200 members of delegations from Hong Kong and Macau. President Xi Jinping and Vice Premier Hang Zheng, who oversees Hong Kong and Macau affairs, were among the state leaders to meet with the delegations. Also present were Vice Chairman of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, Tung Chee-hwa, Leung Chun-ying, and Edmund Ho. In his 6-minute speech, President Xi praised Hong Kong and Macau for their contributions to the country's reform and opening up in the past 40 years. He said the country and the people would not forget this. Looking to the future, he said the two SARs still have unique advantages and irreplaceable roles to play in the country's development. He called on compatriots in Hong Kong and Macau to grasp opportunities brought by the Belt and Road Initiative and the Greater Bay Area Development Plan. Chief Executive Carrie Lam said Hong Kong and Shenzhen will work together to build a global innovation center in the Greater Bay Area, which will provide further development opportunities for the city. The SAR delegations then attended a luncheon hosted by Vice Premier Hang Zheng. Before returning to Hong Kong, Carrie Lam told reporters that the delegates were delighted by the president's remarks, then a pointed question from the press.
And if Hong Kong needs an Article 23 legislation or even a new chief secretary to achieve that?
Well, first of all, we have not touched on at all the 2 issues that you have raised.
That's wrapped up Hong Kong delegation's 3-day trip, marking the 40th anniversary of China's reform and opening up, a trip that began in Shenzhen last Saturday. Christy Leung, TVB News.
Beijing is expected to finalize a massive trade deal that excludes the United States on the sidelines of the ASEAN summit in Singapore. This as Premier Li Keqiang slammed economic protectionism before flying to the city-state. Jeff Tang reports.
Premier Li Keqiang was full of expectations ahead of his first official trip to Singapore. In a signed article published in Singaporean newspaper The Straits Times today, Li said he hopes to work with Singaporean colleagues to take our cooperation in all areas to a new level. He added, "China has opened its door to the world. We will never close it, but open it even wider." Li's Singapore visit will be the first by a Chinese premier to the city-state in 11 years. Beijing is expected to rally support from other fast-growing Asian powers to counter Washington's influence in the region. While China and other Asia-Pacific countries, including Japan, will meet with other Southeast Asian nations at the ASEAN summit, the spotlight might be on the sidelines of the gathering. That's because Beijing could be announcing a broad agreement on the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, or RCEP, which covers half the world's population. The pact has now overtaken the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, or CPTPP, in terms of its coverage. The CPTPP, formerly known as the Trans-Pacific Partnership, or TPP, was championed by former US leader Barack Obama to keep China's growing influence in check. But Trump withdrew the US from the pact shortly after he took office, which led to its renaming. That left the door open for Beijing to realign itself as the dominant power in global trade. Trump's conspicuous absence in Singapore comes amid a bitter trade dispute between China and the US, which saw both sides slap punitive tariffs on hundreds of billions of dollars worth of each other's imports. It has also raised questions about Washington's commitment to Asia. Instead, US Vice President Mike Pence will represent Washington at the 4-day summit that ends on Thursday. Jeff Tang, TVB News.
A peace forum is being held in France where world leaders are gathered to discuss innovative solutions to global challenges. That's where U.S. President Donald Trump's America First policy was slammed as being part of the problem. And Trump headed home just as that event got underway. The 3-day Paris Peace Forum aims to push leaders to focus on 5 themes: peace and security, the environment, development, the inclusive economy, and new technologies. Forum host, French President Emmanuel Macron, encouraged the governments of countries participating to exercise multilateralism instead of unilateralism. He said, 100 years ago, the only reason peace and international cooperation failed is because leaders pushed for unilateralism and nationalism.
Und macht bewusst, welche verheerenden Folgen.
German Chancellor Angela Merkel agreed and said it was national vaingloriousness and military arrogance that triggered 2 world wars. Macron didn't name Trump, but it's clear he's the main target of his message to fight back against the world's nationalist and authoritarian surge. Trump, who has expressed disdain for multilateral organizations, skipped the event. But there was no hint of unilateralism as Trump paid tribute to the U.S. and Allied soldiers killed in World War I at a cemetery near Paris.
The American and French patriots of World War I embody the timeless virtues of our 2 republics: honor and courage, strength and valor. It is our duty to preserve the civilization they defended and to protect the peace they so nobly gave their lives to secure.
Trump's remarks came one day after he was criticized for not visiting a different American cemetery due to bad weather. America's president has already left France, but back in Paris, residents protested against him using a blimp of a diaper-wearing Trump. Protesters say they can't stand his rhetoric, but one admits she's more disgusted with the world's media for paying too much attention to him.
I'm tired of seeing his name on the front page of the paper. I'd like to see a news blackout about him. Obviously, there are lots of other problems in the world, and one of the things that's upsetting me about Trump is that he's distracting us from these other issues.
Russian President Vladimir Putin said he spoke with President Donald Trump while in France. Putin admitted their meeting was brief, but because he didn't want to interrupt Armistice Day events in Paris. He also made it clear he's ready for dialogue after Trump vowed to withdraw from the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty. Then Putin reacted calmly to the recent large-scale military drills conducted by NATO. The drills in Norway and surrounding seas are the largest since the end of the Cold War. Putin said he hopes to continue dialogue on the drills. He also said he supports the idea of establishing an all-European military force alternative to the North Atlantic Alliance.
The death toll from wildfires raging in California has risen to 31, and some 200 more are unaccounted for. The state needs government help, but instead it's receiving criticism from President Donald Trump. Peter Koveas explains.
Paradise is gone in Northern California. The entire community has been scorched to the ground. Buildings have been reduced to rubble. The Camp Fire, about 150 kilometers north of Sacramento, was one of the most destructive blazes in California history. Further south, near Los Angeles, the Woolsey and Hill fires are not letting up. Firefighters are making progress, but hot, dry winds are expected to blow until Tuesday, and this could make the job of fire crews more difficult.
The Santa Ana wind condition has reestablished itself and is going to be in the area for the next couple of days, hopefully starting to mitigate on Tuesday evening.
Mother Nature is not helping. Besides winds fanning the flames, it's more than 6 months since the area received half an inch or more of rain. California Governor Jerry Brown asked U.S. President Donald Trump to declare a major disaster for the state to bolster the emergency response and help residents recover. Instead, he was scolded. Trump took to Twitter, claiming California has been improperly managing its forests, and to get smart. State officials blame climate change for the blazes on federally managed lands.
We're dealing with existential conditions that once they take off, the certain amount of dryness in the vegetation, in the soil, in the air, and the winds get up 50, 60 miles an hour, this is what happens. And we have to keep understanding it better, but we're in a new abnormal, and things like this will be part of our future. And this won't be the beginning. It'll be things like this and worse.
More than 300,000 people have been forced from their homes.
Please heed evacuation warnings. Do not stay in your homes to try and defend them. Please leave that to us. Please do not put your lives at risk.
Some residents that fled the flames have been allowed to return, but there is nothing to return to. Peter Koveas, TVB News.
A farm supervisor who sparked a major food scare in Australia has been ordered to remain in custody until her next court appearance. 50-year-old Maya Trin faces 7 charges in a strawberry needle contamination case. She arrived at a Brisbane courthouse in this vehicle earlier today to face 7 counts of goods contamination. These are the first charges laid in the case. In September, Australia was rocked by more than 200 reported cases of sewing needles being found in fruit. Several supermarkets pulled the items from shelves. Growers were forced to dump fruit, leading to heavy financial losses. The defendant is a former employee of one of the brands affected.
And still ahead in our newscast, a Cheung Sha Wan school ordered to stop its operation for failing to register properly with the government. Myanmar says it's ready to repatriate Rohingya Muslims from Bangladesh.
鏈鋸、割草機、吹葉機，全部都會污染我哋呼吸嘅空氣，所以我哋研製電動產品。我哋想拓展中國以外嘅市場，但係負債風險好高，可能會血本無歸。安達出咗一份保單，令我哋可以出口至世界各地，而唔會威脅到公司嘅業務穩健。結果一切進展順利。
TVB News. The Education Bureau has ordered a private school in Cheung Sha Wan to stop operating without proper registration with the authorities. This has led to a 2-day suspension of classes in the school's kindergarten and primary branches. Sharon Tang tells us more.
Chung Chin Middle School in Cheung Sha Wan was closed today. While no students or teachers were in sight around the campus, a staff member refused to take questions from reporters on what had happened. This comes as the school has reportedly violated rules in relation to its operation. An official reply from the government only came at around 5 p.m. today.
We have carried out an inspection last Friday and find that there is operation of a school without registration and our approval. So immediately we asked them to stop the operation, and the next step that we have to do is to find school places for those students affected.
He added that this would involve up to 200 students. Meanwhile, the lawmaker stressed the school has the duty to relocate its students and staff.
For example, the students might have to find other schools to study, and teachers might need to find a new teaching position. So the school, I think, has a very important moral obligation.
Chung Chin Middle School worked in collaboration with Think International School, which has campuses spread around town. This morning in Think International School's Kowloon Tong kindergarten campus, some students and parents only realized that classes there were also suspended when they arrived at the school. Classes are expected to resume on Wednesday. Sharon Tang, TVB News.
Asia's general manager made his first appearance at an inquiry looking into shoddy works at Hong Kong Station. Blatant lies is how he described the accusations made by a subcontractor against him. Pinky Wong has more.
General Manager of Leighton Asia, Carl Speed, testified before the commission this afternoon. He only began serving in the position in April last year. Leading counsel for the commission, Ian Pennicott, questioned Speed on whether he was surprised that there was no written record from Leighton and the MTRC on the layer-by-layer inspections. Speed said it was the agreed process, and witnesses have confirmed that the inspection was done with the MTRC jointly. Speed was also asked if Leighton signed a confidentiality agreement because he had seen a video clip by China Technology Managing Director Jason Poon, which showed bar cutting at the construction site. Speed apparently never saw the video, and there have been false allegations and blatant lies. To further assist the hearing, the Commission's Chairman Michael Hartman requests for simplified versions of the Hong Kong Station design drawings, which will be presented before the panel during cross-examination. Pinky Wong, TVB News.
Television Broadcasts Limited is taking the government to court for overcharging license fees for the last 30 years. A lawsuit filed at the High Court was against the Department of Justice and the Communications Authority. The broadcaster accuses both of overcharging license fees between 1988 and 2018 due to mistakes of law or facts. TVB requested a court order to collect the money it overpaid. The fees were for paying several public licenses, including those under the Broadcasting Ordinance and Telecommunications Ordinance.
Sri Lanka's new prime minister has defected from the country's ruling party 2 weeks after the president installed him in office. Mahinda Rajapaksa took 44 former lawmakers of the center-left Sri Lanka Freedom Party, or SLFP, with him to join the Sri Lanka People's Front, or SLPP. It's a party formed in 2016 by Rajapaksa's younger brother, Basil. He's a former economy minister. A SLPP insider said 65 of the 82 SLFP members will eventually defect to the new party. The move follows an intense power struggle in the past 2 weeks. This comes after the president suddenly sacked the prime minister and installed former President Rajapaksa in his place. Rajapaksa is known as a pro-China strongman. Rajapaksa's son, a former lawmaker, said the mass defection came because the president had not been pursuing the ruling coalition's policies.
Myanmar says it's ready to receive more than 2,000 Rohingya Muslims to be repatriated from Bangladesh on Thursday. Top Myanmar officials confirmed that will be the first group from 5,000 people to be moved under a deal struck between the two neighboring countries last month. This comes after 700,000 of Rohingya Muslims fled Myanmar last year to escape deadly violence carried out by security forces. Many were killed, gang raped, or had their villages burned. This is why many are refusing to return. The United Nations agrees, saying conditions are not yet safe for their return.
And to the Korean Peninsula, where produce could produce an easing of tensions between the North and the South. These crates at an airbase in Jeju, South Korea, are filled with tangerines. 200 tons of the fruit are headed to North Korea. The shipment repays the gift of pine mushrooms received from Pyongyang in September. The delivery is a sign that ties between the neighbors are improving. This despite a stalemate in U.S.-North Korea talks on denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. And from all of us, thanks.